Well, hello, everybody. Market Monday, Blair here. I told you on Thursday I'd be back. I say it every time. We're back right here. Monday evening. This is Central Standard Time for me. I used to be Pacific Standard Time. So 6 p.m. every single week right here. Market Monday. Today's episode, should I invest my stimulus check? I know it's something that people are talking about. We're going to be getting money from the government. Should I invest it? Should I do that with it? Maybe you're feeling the pressure because you're like, well, maybe I should invest this, but I can't really because I need it for this, or I thought I was going to use it for that. We're going to talk about all of that stuff tonight so that I can help you, as I always like to say, win. And in this scenario, know some of your options. What are some of the things that you could do? I think there's an opportunity for some upgrades here, both in the way that we're thinking and in some of the ways we could actually choose to use this money. That said, we're going to jump into all that and more tonight. But first, for those of you who are joining us live, I love to hear from you as we are going through the session tonight. So if you want to drop a comment in there like Mario just did, said, hey, Blair, hey, back to you, Mario. Glad to have you on here, man. And anybody else who wants to jump in, say hello, you can go ahead and do that right there in the comments. Of course, that's the best part about being on here live, is that you get to ask me questions. I talk to people all the time. I coach people all the time. One of my pillars, one of my keys to breakthrough that I talk about in my program, 7 Keys to Breakthrough, one of them is mentorship. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more tonight, but that's one area in my life that I am cranking to a whole nother level this year. And I am so energized by that. Why do I say this right now? Because that's what we get to do right here. This doesn't have to be a passive broadcast. This is something that you can join in with me and ask questions, comments. I might ask you some questions as we're going along here. And if we do that, then we get a whole nother level of interaction, learning, and equipping. And that is what I hope to do for you tonight. So hello to you, Mario. Anybody else out there who's joining us in the Facebook world or YouTube, you can do that. Now, last thing, for those of you out there, you're saying, I am watching this on the recording, so I don't necessarily get to do that. Well, first things first, thank you for being with us, whether you're here live right now or you're joining us on the recording. I'm certainly glad that you are here. You can still always comment. You can comment right there on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you are, and we definitely want to respond to you. So you have an invitation to do that as well. That said, I got some cool stuff to look at tonight, so let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to finish tonight with something that I think is just the heart of this question. Should I invest my stimulus check? I've got a lot of different things I want to say, but we are going to finish tonight by landing on a chart, a stock chart, okay? Now, this is something that happened last week, but I'm going to show you how I worked with students just this last week to identify, according to what we train our students at Tradeway to do, to identify an opportunity, okay? And that's what tonight is all about, identifying an opportunity in the stock market that could have been an opportunity for you, okay? In the future, these kinds of things can occur again. We've just got to have the lens to know what to look for, and I'm going to tie all of this together as we dive into it. So let's get our running shoes on here because we're about to hit the track and go for this. Should I invest my stimulus check? Well, that's, as I mentioned, something that people are talking about. Maybe you thought about it. And honestly, I want to applaud anybody out there who even just thought, I've got this money coming in. What if I invested that? Now, maybe you didn't think stock market. Maybe you didn't necessarily think any specific investment vehicle or any kind of target of where you might put that. But you were thinking, what if I take that money and I find a way to sow it? What if I take that money to put it in the ground? Okay, because that is a major step beyond where many of us even go or begin to go when we're thinking about money. It's very easy, right, to get money. And this isn't unique to a stimulus check by any means. It's very normal for us to be getting something and think, by and large, two things I've mentioned on here before. If you have $5 in your pocket and no credit card debt in the United States, then you are significantly more wealthy than most people, right? If you have $5 cash in your pocket and you have no credit card debt, your net worth is significantly higher than a lot of people. How does that happen? Well, there's lots of reasons. And of course, there's no judgment here. We're just learning to upgrade the way we think and manage finances. Well, in terms of what I might do with the stimulus check, a lot of people are going to think, here's the needs I have, which I want to say, first of all, throughout this entire conversation, by no means do I in any way mean that a stimulus check not invested or used one way or the other is something that we look down on or anything like that. I want to help you get some ideas in your tool belt to maximize what you can do. Again, both in the way you're thinking about money and then ultimately what you're able to do with it. But of course, the circumstances surrounding this entire situation, there are many, many people out there, and you may be one of them. And that money that's coming in is going to be significantly needed for just basic things. So I don't want to be insensitive to that. I want to say that up front. This in no way is to set that aside or to say that that is somehow a lesser option or something like that. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit more in just a minute when I move to another point. But I do want to say that right off the top. Now, that said, this gives us a broader conversation regarding money in general, doesn't it? This is just a big topical conversation right now because almost all of us are getting something of this stimulus bill, and that gives us an opportunity to have this discussion. Okay, now that said, I talked about if we are thinking about investing, maybe even just saying, if I didn't have to put it into this right now, I would. All right. And when I say this, I mean something that is an absolute must need. It isn't a toy. It isn't something like that. It's something that we must do. That is something that opens up this conversation if we're thinking about investing it, where 2 Corinthians 9:10 says, he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. Now, there's just a simple contrast in this verse, okay? And I just want to focus on those pieces. We're not doing a full teaching on this verse. However, it does give us a differentiation between two different things. What are those two things? Well, he gives seed to the sower and bread for food. Bread for food. So we've got to understand when provision, any resource comes into our lives, we've got to understand what is bread and what is seed. In other words, what are we going to consume because it's necessary and it's nourishing? And what are we going to take and plant in the ground? And any of our resources, it's good for us to go through a process of asking the Lord and asking people in our lives who are mentors to us in this area. Not that they will necessarily tell us exactly what to do, but it's good to have this insight, a plan. This is strategic financial planning where we go, what is bread and what is seed? What is bread and what is seed? So you may have this check coming in, and it's a good time, like any time there's something coming in, that we can ask and go, is this bread or is this seed? Because I may need it for bread right now. And if I plant bread in the ground, it just molds and I lose it. But if I eat seed, I heard a great teaching by Beth Moore. To be totally honest, I've only ever heard her this one time. But she gave this great teaching on the seed and how we can just simply eat the seed. And there is a measure of nourishment in the moment that comes from eating the seed, but that's not what the seed is for. So we've got to ask, what's bread and what's seed? And even maybe you're not thinking of this through a spiritual lens tonight, you can still take that principle and ask yourself, basically, is this something that I'm meant to ingest right now to nourish my life in that way? It's for consumption at this point in time, or this is something that can be sown in the ground, okay? That is the first differentiation that I think we need to make. So should I invest my stimulus check? Well, the first thing I think I would ask is, are you holding in your hand bread? Are you holding in your hand seed? Seed can be planted in the ground. Now, when it is seed, think about the fact that seed can be planted and the potential. There's risk in the planting. Yes, we're going to talk about that some more. But planting the seed gives potential for a harvest. Far beyond multiplication, right? Gives us far beyond what it is that we hold in our hands at this particular point in time. Of course, that's why we would invest. I want to stop for a second. I see some comments coming in from Troy. Troy says, hey, everybody. Hey, back to you, Troy. Thanks for dropping in. I put the other stimulus in my brokerage account. Okay, so Troy has a skill set. Troy is learning to trade stocks and options. So Troy has chosen to say, hey, this is not bread for me. I could use it there, but it's going to be more beneficial for me if I drop this in my trading account, because he's learned how to do that, opening the account, beginning to trade. And he's saying, I figure he's putting a balance of about $5,000 in his account, and he's going to begin to trade options. Okay, so there is an example. If I say this is not bread, this is seed, I'm going to drop that in there. So ask yourself that question. Ask the Lord that question. Okay, is this bread or is this seed? Because if it's seed, I want to invest it. If it's bread, then I don't want to put it in the ground. I don't want to bury it. That's not where it belongs. We would never recommend, and this is my next point, investing money that you absolutely cannot accept any risk on. If you're a student of mine, you've heard me say so many times. In fact, if you've been with me on these broadcasts over the last year, you've heard me say this too. Trading is so much about what's going on inside of you. If you cannot accept the risk of a trade, then that's not a good trade for you. If you can't accept the risk of an investment, that's not a good investment for you. We've got to be in a place where we can accept some degree of risk with the money that we are going to sow. Okay, now I haven't even said stock market yet, which obviously is what we focus on at Tradeway. But if you were going to take any measure of risk with money, you have to be able to accept the measure of risk, because that is simply a part of investing. It certainly is a part of trading. Now, we teach you how to assess the risk, manage the risk, control the risk, protect yourself, right? That's the biggest thing that we teach people to do. But that doesn't mean that there is no risk. So if we're asking ourselves, is this seed to sow? Is this bread? You might want to ask yourself, is this money that I can accept taking any measure of risk on? If somebody out there is going, well, I'm going to put this check in my trading account as well, but I'm not going to be able to pay rent, obviously, that's not a scenario that we would encourage. It's not going to help you on the rent side of things, I would think, but it also is going to be a highly emotional experience when you are trading in the markets, and that's not going to help you either. Now, there are ways that we can help limit that risk, as I said, but that is a good thing to think as we're getting started here. Hey, if this stimulus check is coming in, should I invest it? Well, can you accept any measure of risk over that money? Because again, if the answer is no, I cannot, it would be catastrophic to my life if I took any amount of loss. Then that's not going to be seed for sowing. That's not going to be a good thing to plant in the ground. So it is not abnormal to take losses when you are trading or investing. That is actually not abnormal. We talked about this recently, even for professionals. In fact, one of the things that differentiate amateurs from professionals is not taking losses, Both groups take losses. A lot of us might think, what separates a professional from an amateur trader? Well, professionals don't take losses. That actually isn't true. They both take losses, but professionals take controlled losses. They take controlled losses every time, and they don't allow those controlled losses to damage their emotions and mindset. Okay? They protect their capital. Amateurs don't do that. They get very emotional about losses. They do not protect their capital every time. They do not take consistently small losses, but they might take a small one and then a really big one, and then two small ones and then a really big one. And there's some wins in there, but because of those really big ones, they don't come out ahead. That's the difference between the amateurs and the professionals. So loss and expenses are always a part of this. So you say, should I invest my stimulus check? Again, if you can't handle any kind of risk, then that's just not going to be the right place to go. I know I'm speaking to somebody out there tonight, but I'm also speaking to others who say, no, I can. I actually can. I'm looking at this and I feel like I have some seed in my hand. I'm like Troy and I want to do something, but maybe you're not really sure exactly what to do with it. Not sure how to feel confident about where you're going to sow that. So we're going to talk about that next. Although I want to say hello to Ruben. I see you there, Ruben. Hello, everyone. Ready to learn. Welcome, 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 Ruben. If you missed anything, once we're done here, of course, this will be posted. You can always go back, and I mention that all the time. For anybody out there who is interested in seeing more, we have covered so much stuff over the last year in both the Market Monday, and then also we used to be on Wednesdays. We're over to Thursdays now for our Stock Talk show. We'll talk about that more at the end of today's broadcast. But you can go back and you can watch anything that we have done prior. And, I'll tell you what, guys, if you go back and you watch the entire series, somebody out there, you can holler in the comments if you agree with me, if you know what I'm talking about, because I know some of you guys are on here every single week and you are not missing out. Because if you go back and you watched everything, you're going to get a pretty comprehensive view on how to feel confident about what is happening in the market, okay? You may not be able to go out there and fly solo from all that content, but you are going to be tenfold more informed, confident about how to handle yourself and how to grow and what it's going to take for you to get to the places you want to go if you look through all those episodes. So I highly encourage you guys to do that. So we've got to know, seed to sow, or is it bread to eat? We've got to know that first. Second question, can I take any risk with this? Sort of it's almost like the first question, and that's the follow-up of it, where you can ask yourself that question if you're not really sure which it is for you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have any discomfort or fear of loss, okay? I don't encourage fear of loss, but I do want to say this. If we are uncomfortable with the idea of losing some money in the stock market, well, two things need to happen. One, I need to say that's pretty normal, right? Everybody feels that. That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't ever trade, because then new people would never trade. But they need, number two, which I mentioned already, is the skill sets that help you limit your losses and keep yourself in the game. Live to trade another day, as we say around here at Tradeway. So that's the next thing we need to do. But what does it really mean if we move from there? What does it really mean to invest? Blair, you've been saying this whole time, should I invest my stimulus check? And because, of course, we talk about the stock market a lot, it's easy to think that that's what I mean. And it is what I mean, but it's not all of what I mean, okay? What does it mean to invest that stimulus check? Well, think about this, okay? There are multiple ways to invest. Troy says a person would be wise to put $100 in a Thinkorswim and practice paper trading. I love that. I'm going to come back to that comment because I think that's going to benefit some folks out there. So what does it even mean to invest my stimulus check or really take some money? Some of you out there are thinking, well, Blair, that stimulus check is gone. Or maybe you didn't get one, right? Not everybody was going to get one. Some of us just made too much money, and that means that you're just not going to get that check. but you've got some money that you want to start investing with because you understand that there's bread for eating and seed for sowing. So if you don't put your money to work, right? If you don't learn to see those dollars as little employees and soldiers that go to war for you and go to work for you, then there's battles you don't win and there's wages you don't earn. We've got to get out of the mindset, like I know many of you have already, right? You've already gotten out of this mindset. We've got to get out of the mindset that just thinks trading time for money. I've got a job, I've got a skill set, I trade the skill set for money, and the more time I can give away, hopefully the more I make, and the more specialized my skill set is, the more I can charge my employer per hour, right? That's the idea. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, except if it's the only way we think about money. We've got to have other pieces in play if we want to have a healthy and full financial strategy in our lives where we're saying, I do have some seed or I can get some seed for sowing. And that is a part of a more comprehensive strategy. Okay. So investing that is investing defined. But what does it mean, some outside of the box ways to invest? Okay, so I say outside of the box because I think even though we talk about the stock market, I was writing some notes earlier and I thought, you know what? This is something we haven't talked about as much. And I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast when it comes to mentors and my keys to breakthrough, mentors are one of the most powerful accelerators, sources of leverage in your life that you could possibly have. And if I can use a different word for mentor for a second, it's really education, right? It's really education. Some people are in the stock market. We talked about this last week, right? There's a record number of people opening brokerage accounts. That doesn't mean they're going to last. That doesn't mean they're going to survive the conditions of the market. Wall Street is designed to take money from people who don't know what they're doing. They play on human psychology. Now, that other person has to agree with them in that, but if we don't have understanding, that's very easy to do when we're in the markets. They understand how to take money from people. So we've got to be educated. So what am I saying? I'm saying we can go out without training, without input. And I always say good input is good output. You want better output? Check your input. If I'm not getting the outcome, then I got to check the income. And some of us try to tinker with the outcome and keep the same energy flow going, right? The same thing coming in. And I'm wondering why the same thing going out. Because the saying is, what's the definition of insanity? To do the same thing again and expect a different result. But that's usually externally focused. We've got to change the internal focus as well. We've got to change what's flowing in so we can change what's flowing out. Then we can change what we're doing so we can change what we're getting. So investing in ourselves is also not just looking at what's an opportunity for me in the market. And we're going to look at something that I think is really interesting to look at before we wrap up tonight. But let's turn the camera on ourselves for a second, if you will. How about you are a good investment? What is something that you could invest in you? Okay. You want to be an investor. We can teach you and train you how to be an investor. You want to be a trader. We teach people how to think like, act like traders. Give yourself the gift of education, an investment in you, because as the saying goes, give a man a fish, right? But teach a man to fish. Totally different. And some of you out there may not even be thinking in this realm so much. And I mentioned the mentors. And for me, I know that I'm going to another level because I'm completely transforming the degree, the amount, the quality of input that's coming into my life, my mind, my heart, my life, my home. And the output is already being radically changed. So one of the things I would just slide across the table to everybody out there tonight and say is, for a lot of us, right? For some of us, like Troy said, I've got a skill set, I've got good input, I'm putting my money in my trading account. For some of us, that's just not quite where we're at yet. Now, as he said, you could put a little bit of money in a trading account and we can practice. And I love that idea. That's part of the program that we teach new students to follow. But what kind of investment do you need in you to go to the next level? Because you're going to drive the car of your trading account. You're going to drive the car of your investments. Unless you're going to hand it off to somebody else, and nobody's going to care more about your money than you are, which is why we at Tradeway have a conviction that we ought to show you how to manage it well and do well at showing you that, so that you can be the one who manages your money. Because again, you're going to care about it more than anybody else. So education, making an investment in you. And here's a statement I heard this week. You don't make money because of what you know. You make money, and this isn't strictly talking about trading, right? We don't make money because of what we know. We make money because of what we do with what we know. But what if we don't know? Right? Let me say that again, right? I don't make money just because of what I know, but I make money because of what I take that and do with what I know, right? It's the ones who do something with what they know. But what if we just didn't learn? What if we just don't know? What if we don't know what the good opportunities are? What if we don't know how to control our emotions? What if we don't know how to find good patterns? What if we don't know when's a good time to buy and when's not a good time to buy? What if we don't know? Well, we got to learn. We got to find out. We got to make a way to find out what we need to know. Because if it's important enough to us to go to another level, which I believe it is, well, then we ought to figure out how to do it. So that is one of the things that I want to encourage you to think about tonight is, how do I invest in my own education? I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end of this broadcast to join us for a free webinar that a couple of our coaches here at Tradeway are going to do. And that's going to help you take another step, right? It's a free webinar to show you some of the things that we do around Tradeway and how those can benefit you in your trading. Make the investment in yourself. That's going to be a time investment, but certainly you're worth it. I always say you can't afford not to. Now, you say, okay, Blair, I'm with you. I'm getting this. It's not just external, it's internal. I always say there's a driver, a car, and road conditions. Road conditions are the market conditions. The car is the system. It's the vehicle you have to navigate the markets. You want an edge in the markets. You don't just want to throw money at the markets. It's never guessing, gambling, or going for it. So I got to have a vehicle. But who drives the vehicle on the road? That's you. So you are the most important investment in your trading. You are the most important investment in your trading. Somebody needs to write that down. Honestly, somebody needs to write that down. But that said, Blair, is there anything out there that's specifically in the market that you can tell me about? This is Market Monday, man. Like, are we going to talk about the market itself? You're way ahead of me, and I like it because I'm going to catch up. Let's jump on over to a couple of pages. I want to show you something that happened just recently, because the point of what I'm going to show you right now when we go over to the chart is, I just want to give you a practical example of something that can happen in the stock market, okay? It did not happen a long time ago, and I'm going to show you how this specific opportunity, this isn't just me going back into the past, into the history and going, well, if you had just done this here and you just done that, you bought it here and you sold it here, geez, you would have made all this. No. I'm going to show you something that actually our students had access to very recently to give you an idea. I hope to inspire you to say, if this is seed for sowing, I want you to understand how close you can be to opportunities once you understand this skill set, okay? I want you to understand how close you can be to real opportunities once you understand this skill set. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And I'm going to show you This is the Tradeway community page. Okay, so people who are in our programs inside of Tradeway have access to several of these pages depending on the learning track that they are on. This is one that almost everybody has access to. And I post on this specific page every single morning. Okay, I start the day by giving my thoughts on what is happening in the market and what should students be expecting. How can they make decisions for the day in their money, in their trading? How can they make decisions with the information we have that morning? I'm giving them what's going on and telling them where we're being directed and what we're watching for. So I want to take you through this. Here's March 25th. This is last Thursday. Okay, so this is last Thursday. This is not a long time ago. And I posted this. This screenshot you can see is taken at 8:55 in the morning. That's 25 minutes after the market opened on Thursday. I post this for everybody. I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing here for time's sake for everybody, but you can see on the page here, perhaps if you're watching on the recording, you can of course pause it. But here's what I really want you to see. Two things. Number one, the market is dropping, right? It actually has, I'm going to go ahead and click this, see if it'll load in time. Sometimes these things are slow on here. You see, the market actually gapped down to our support line. Now, these lines had already been drawn well before Thursday morning. Okay, so I didn't adjust these lines for Thursday morning. They were drawn already. It gaps down. It's moving down. This is a particularly negative morning, okay, what we would call bearish. We talked about that in an episode about 3 weeks ago, right? It's looking particularly bearish. So everybody out there who doesn't know what's going on is thinking, oh, the market's falling. This is definitely not a day I'm going to be looking at buying stocks. Well, let's go a little further down to where I've got highlighted. Today we see a gap down and continued selling so far. It's early. Remember I said 8:40 or 55. So 25 minutes after the market opened, 8:30 Central Standard Time here. Then I said, what now? And this is information. This is what our students want to know. Well, what should I be looking for now? I can come on here and tell people all day long, this is what's happening in front of our eyes, but that's not really helpful to give them confidence of where we're going. Now, that doesn't mean we have a crystal ball and we tell our students, this is what's going to happen in the market. You've heard me say this many times, that anybody who tells you, this is what's going to happen in the market. It's going to crash. It's going to boom. They actually don't know that. And there isn't any way that they could know that. Okay, there isn't any way that they could know that because there's no crystal ball. But you don't need to know what's going to happen to make money in trading. You just have to know what to watch for. So back to my quote here. It says, what now? Well, let's look to the chart. The 50-day moving average, I've got highlighted there, is up next. And this has been an important level, like any support level, and one that's near our trending support, the lines I had on the chart I just showed you. We need to wait for a test, a hold, and a follow-through to be able to do any stock trading at that point. So here's what to watch for. This is the level to watch for. Here's what to watch for at that level. And if we see that, we may be able to do some trading at that level. We haven't seen it yet. So today we are watching and waiting. Now, later that day, the market changed dramatically. It hit almost exactly that support line at the bottom of the page. This is later in the day now. You can see 151. I took this picture. This had been moving up significantly through the day. Now, this is the S&P 500 we're looking at here. So, what did I say? None of us should be surprised to see this level holding. Now, is that because I had a crystal ball? No, right? I just said that. We didn't want to guess, and we never should because it's never guessing, gambling, or going for it. But the 50-day is an important level, and we know that, and we train everybody in our program to understand that and understand why. It was the 50-day, it was an important level, and it was at our support. Remember the lines I have drawn at the bottom there. Some resistance at the 20 is normal, which is above it now. Tomorrow will be big. So I give some comments on the next day. But if we go back here, it's going to take a second to load. It's a little bit slower while we're streaming. I'm going to go ahead and close this. It may not switch over to that just yet. I'll give it a second here. We'll come over here. So we got lots of comments there. I'll get to everybody's comments in a second. So here's what I want to say. If this will pop up, no, we won't be able to. This is the SPY. This isn't the S&P 500 specifically, but it tracks like the S&P 500. So here was the day. I'm going to go ahead and delete this gold line. Here was the day it turned around, and then on Friday is the day it went up again. Okay, so we had a big follow through on Friday. And so what happened is ultimately the S&P, this particular fund that tracks the S&P 500, which we've talked about on here many times, went up $11. Now, you say, well, Blair, it went up $11, but how would it's easy for you to say that on Monday night. How would we have known? Well, I just showed you. Now, not all of our students rushed out and bought this. In fact, I don't even specifically talk about this chart that I'm on right now in any of those posts, except I am talking about the market itself, the market tone as an indicator of whether stocks as a whole would be better to get into or not. But in speaking about that, I analyzed the chart of the S&P 500. I identified a major support line, which is a potential pivot, meaning that's where the stock could potentially turn. The market could potentially turn. By 1 o'clock that afternoon, it had dramatically turned at that level and followed through until, well, today. It went down a bit and came back up today. So from the low of Thursday morning to the high of close on Friday was an $11 move. That was an $11 move. Now, somebody maybe would have got in a little later, could have got out a little earlier. And I'm not giving a specific testimony, but I am saying that based on the reports that I give our students to help equip them to know what to do, right? This isn't an 8 ball, right? A magic 8 ball. This is looking at the skill set and then knowing when and when not to take action. So there are very real opportunities. And if that wasn't enough, I'm trying one more time here. It just doesn't look like that's going to open up. Let me just do this really quick. Let's take a trend line and drop that guy right there. Now, oops. We'll go ahead and do what I always do. Clone this guy. You look at that pattern right there. And I told our students last week, as long as a pattern stays in the pattern, then the pattern's not over. And if we can't trust a pattern to bounce at support and fall at resistance, what's the point of drawing a pattern? Because we've got months here, guys. This is November. Months of doing the same thing over and over. The market is just doing the same. You say, well, that's easy to say from looking at a broader view. What about day to day? I would say let's not get too caught up in the day to day. And if you're in the program, you know I talked about that last week. See, there's a lot of stuff here, guys. It's not complicated. It's just something we need to be reminded of that tells us we're not so far away from some opportunities. Oh, I see that I didn't share the chart there on that last one. So let me go ahead and do that for you guys quick. I apologize that one wasn't there. That's the pattern I'm talking about, okay? I just put some lines on that quickly. So it has repeated itself multiple times, okay? And as I just mentioned, walking through it day to day is different than just looking back at a chart of the last 6 months. Well, that's true, but we never want to lose sight of the overall pattern, of the view of what's going on in the long term, and have the coaching necessary to help us remember that as we're moving through the day to day. Because as I mentioned, if the pattern is still a pattern, it's still a pattern. And we ought to be able to trust the pattern and do so until it changes. So, what am I saying? Should I invest my stimulus check? Blair, are you telling me that I should go out and put all my money from this check or any area of my life and just put it in this stock? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is opportunities abound. I am saying opportunities abound. We've just got to have the skill set to know how to do it. Okay. That is what I am saying. I'm going to stop the screen share. We've got some questions on here. Dylan is saying, is it an exhaustion gap? Possibly. Well, ultimately, if we're talking about the gap down on Thursday, that was definitely, I'm sorry, I'm reading all your comments here, Dylan. I just put my real money in an index like VO or SPY while paper trading or speculating. Yeah, and that's an approach that you can do depending on whether we're talking about trading or we're talking about investing. There's definitely different strategies there. We're primarily today talking about trading, but we can ultimately go into investing as well, which is something we've talked about on here before, which would be more of a buy and hold long term. You might buy an index, you might buy a specific stock and hold on to that for a long time. That is certainly viable, and Tradeway has programs for both of those things. They're just separate skill sets. They really are different disciplines, different mindsets. So I try not to cross the wires on those, but both are equally valuable. Mary Jo says, please show the chart. Thank you for saying that, because I forgot that it wasn't showing. So I appreciate that. We don't know exactly what it's going to do, but it is a probable move. And Dylan is correct, right? We are not working with certainties. We are working with probabilities. And if we can learn to identify higher probabilities in one area, lower probabilities in the other, well, of course, we're going to choose the one that has the higher probabilities or the highest probabilities. Probabilities are never guarantees, but they're better than guessing, gambling, and going for it. Like I said, Troy says studying stock charts can actually be fun to do. Well, I think it's fun, he says. Practice, right? And this does. It takes practice. It's a skill set. We're not just learning to trade. We're learning a trade. But the benefits of that trade can be phenomenal, right? That's the potential of what we're doing here, and that's why we do it. But it can even be fun along the way, as Troy said. So, should I invest my stimulus check? I don't know. Let's ask the questions again. Is it seed or is it bread? Can I afford to take any risk with this money or not? Right? I've got to ask myself that question. Of course, Blair can't answer that question for you, and you can't answer that question for me, but those are very important questions to ask. Furthermore, am I the investment? Do I need to make an investment in me because good input is good output? And then ultimately, do I understand that the opportunities here for the trained eye, the trained mind, for an at-home trading business are ever present, ever present. We don't have to go far to find them. They're there, but we've got to cut out the noise and know the probabilities. Which ones have high probability and which ones do not? That is something that we talk about at Tradeway all the time. Now, I mentioned for those who stuck around to the end, I'm going to pop a link in here for you right now. This is to a workshop with two of our coaches, Mr. Ross Query and Jeffrey Nance. They have both been with Tradeway for a long time. They're great traders. They are going to teach a course and specifically take you guys to the next level on how to really know that Tradeway can make that investment in you. Ultimately, we're going to show you some of that, like I was just showing you the community page, right? We're going to show you some of that internal stuff and give you some of that content for free on this broadcast. So you definitely don't want to miss that at all. It's just an investment in yourself. And man, there's just so much really great content on these platforms. I want you to be able to get in there and see some of that So you can register for that on the link that I just placed in the chat, whether you're joining us on YouTube or on Facebook. I was going to say whether you're joining us on YouTube or joining us on Tradeway. We're all joining us on Tradeway, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. Remember, if you're out there tonight and you know somebody else who would like to see this, whether you're watching, recording, or you're with us live, go ahead, pop their name, tag them in the chat. This will send it over to them. They can come on over here. They can watch this. If it's going to benefit them, it's going to benefit them. So I'd love to get that over to them. If you're on YouTube, ring the bell and subscribe. That way you'll be notified anytime we go live. And we are going live more and more and more with this great free content for you guys. So make sure you don't miss anything on Facebook. Simply click the like button and we will be with you on there as well, letting you know anytime that we are going to go live. You won't miss anything that way. That said, thanks everybody for being on once again tonight. Thank you for commenting, coming into the room, joining. Share this with anybody, tag anybody, sign up for that free masterclass that they're going to do. And we are going to be back on Thursday, as always, for our Stock Talk Thursday. We're going to specifically look at something fresh this week. I'm looking forward to jumping onto that with you guys. First, we're going to have a trading tip Tuesday tomorrow. That's going to be with Dave Huber. So you'll get a trading tip from Dave tomorrow. We're going to study the word on Wednesday. And then I will be back for Stock Talk Thursday at the end of the week. So we got all kinds of stuff going on for Tradeway TV. Happy to do it. Happy to see you. That's why we do what we do. Troy says, is that a real brick wall behind you? My friend, this is tried and true. This is a real brick wall. We got no cheesy Zoom backgrounds going on here today, my friend. This is the real deal. Run the race, Mark says, thanks, Blair. Thank you for being on here. Nancy, thank you for being on here. And thank you guys for commenting. I love seeing that. Love having you guys on here. And let me just say as I close tonight, if you guys ever go, you know what, Blair, we really, really want you to talk about this one thing. We want you to answer this question. I'm always looking for interaction, as I said, because I think the mentorship relationship is extremely essential to acceleration and breakthrough. So if there's ever anything that you guys say, this is really what I want to talk about, whether you're following us on Instagram or any of the platforms I already mentioned, go ahead and comment. You can always email us, support@tradeway.com. That's support@tradeway.com. Let us know what you want to hear, because I would be happy to hear from you and I will bring it to the table. And I think that would be really fun to be able to do. So always know that door is open. With that said, you guys, I am going to sign off. Have myself a good Monday night. I hope you guys do the same, and we will see you next time.